Okay, well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us for the webinar. If you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to type them out in the chat and we'll answer them at the end. If a question requires additional follow-up from our speakers, they will email you a response directly afterwards. So here's what you can expect from today's event. Before we get started, I would first like to provide a little background on who we are for anyone joining us who isn't familiar with the work we do here at Virid. So Virid is the unified commerce solution provider, bringing the platform, expertise, and partnership to support complex commerce needs from end to end. We help growing online and omnichannel retail brands looking to see faster load times, increased average order value, and more revenue on their e-commerce sites. And now I would like to introduce our speakers. Steve Deller is the president and CEO of Virid. He brings over 35 years of software engineering and e-commerce development experience to help clients accelerate revenue growth. Thanks for being here, Steve.
Good to be here.
And then next I'd like to introduce Sean. Sean O'Neill is a senior developer at Virid with more than 18 years of experience as a full stack developer. He helps Virid clients solve complex technical challenges and implement cutting edge commerce solutions. Thanks for joining us, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then finally, my name is Madeline Miller. I'm a marketing coordinator at Virid, and I'm very, very happy to be moderating this webinar. So let's get started. Okay. So today we'll be discussing common e-commerce site pitfalls and how to avoid them, broken down across 3 categories. We'll be diving into the mistakes you may be making on your e-commerce site that slow down performance, as well as issues that could be adding friction to the customer experience. And then finally, we'll discuss challenges and opportunities regarding on-site technical SEO and GEO. So we've seen how quickly the e-commerce landscape changes. In the last few years, we've seen the rise of agentic commerce, hyper-personalization, social commerce, and so much more. But there are plenty of e-commerce fundamentals that retailers are still missing the mark on. So, Steve, what is one of the primary mistakes that you see retailers making on their sites that is slowing them down?
Well, there are two major categories of issues that retailers run into. The first is as your site evolves and you start to add all of these extra features to it using various third parties to help your customers transact online, things like product reviews and AI assistance and various other things there, is that you have to make sure that you spend some time looking at how they're performing. You focus on your own website, but third parties can really slow down a website, especially if their various elements have not been installed properly, deferred so that the page can render quickly and then their information can backfill rather than making the customer wait for every single little thing that is drawing. I think they're great tools to have, and it really helps customers find what they're looking for and convert more effectively. But you have to pay a lot of attention to that, and it's ongoing because the first day you launch it, it may work great, and then a week later, one of your vendors has an issue, and the site starts to slow down. You may or may not be aware of that, so you'll see conversion rates drop, and why are we losing sales? So it's a continuous process to check those third-party vendors to make sure that things are performant, and then they're continuing to live up to the SLAs that they've offered you. The second piece along with that is that as you transition away from those third-party vendors, you have to make sure to remove that code. While it will still potentially work for a while after they terminate your account and the relationship has gone away, you can start to create errors on the page because it's trying to look for that third-party data and it's no longer there. So make sure that you take that extra step once you've terminated the contract and the parties have gone their own way to go back to the website and find any remnants of those third parties. The second category is just general performance as your customer load increases and decreases. So people coming to your website varies throughout the day. I'm sure you're aware. They go to sleep at some point and they come back to the website and visit it during the day, sometimes at lunch rush, when they're taking some time and they're like, oh, let me go take a look at that, that gift that I needed to buy or whatever. But it also can swing very wildly if you get good press. We've seen this with a lot of folks that they get an advertisement mention on a talk show or some other advertising campaign, or even an influencer, perhaps overseas, has featured your product or an offering on your website, and all of a sudden the traffic spikes, and it can spike very dramatically. So you need to make sure that the site is not only doing fine in those low peak times, but when a big event happens that drives a lot of traffic to your website, you need to make sure you handle those. Something we do here at Virid is just before Black Friday and Cyber Monday. The history is full of those cautionary tales of sites that couldn't handle the spikes on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So we go through and we make sure that we have tested for load every year. Luckily, we haven't had any issues, but when you have a piece of code that you didn't realize couldn't handle a high traffic situation, doing that preventative load testing in advance, make sure that you don't have any black eyes come holiday time, and that definitely can translate to lost sales.
Nice. Thanks, Steve. Sean, what are some of the mistakes that you see?
I think one of the big ones is, optimizing your images, and that kind of has multiple, there's a pipeline, right? So like when you're generating the image initially, marketing images, product images, that, you're getting them in the right resolutions for the right space that they're going to be in, knowing your media, like what the breakdown of your site traffic is. If it's mostly mobile, then those resolutions should target mostly those mobile viewports, so that you're not having a customer sitting on a train or a metro on a 3G network and they're loading like a 1200 by 1200 image that's taking 15 to 20 seconds. Not just specific to individual images, but on pages that images are one of the most expensive things to load, that you're only loading the images that are on the screen initially, and that you're deferring any image loading of images off the screen or below the fold in the example of like a mobile image. So making sure that you're doing that as much as possible so that you're keeping the user on that screen looking at things and not waiting for things to load at the bottom and you're getting jittering or trouble scrolling. Kind of trailing on that, a little bit of measuring ROI, like having a way to measure the ROI on changes you make. Images are expensive, but another thing that's very expensive is video. So if you put large videos on a product detail page and you're going to load those, that's going to incur costs from CDNs, from your hosting providers. So make sure that you have some way of A/B testing these kinds of features. Should you be loading videos? Are they actually converting users more? Are they benefiting from these kinds of integrations on the site? And then, kind of going back to what I was touching on with, the number of images currently that the user's looking at is, minimize generally results that they're looking at, but in a specific sense, like minimize the number of products that you're coming back with on like an auto suggest. You want to reduce the cognitive load on the user. You don't want them to see a menu with 50 different meal options. You want to give them 3 options with numbers so that they can just say the number and get the thing they want, so that they can click on a product and get to a page. And then maybe if you want them to look at other options, have related images or products that they might also like, but really be funneling them and reducing the amount of load that they have to kind of process in their own brains.
Nice. That's very insightful. Thanks so much to both of you for that. Beyond that, what issues do you most commonly see that add friction to the customer journey? Sean, do you want to start this time?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So generally, like, uh, I would say add friction. So trouble clicks, like when certain things break on the site, you know, what are the sorry about that.
You're doing awesome.
Yeah, so trouble clicks when a link or any kind of thing coming back from like an email, they come to the site. If they're experiencing any kind of like, you know, the order didn't load, or there's some issue happening on like, say you had an interaction that was supposed to occur off of that, that, you know, you should have monitoring for those user sessions, so that you can know that they're experiencing it. So I guess the trouble there is like, there is friction. How do you know when the friction happens? Those kind of session viewers can give you like that data, so you can know that this is actually happening. Again, some of it is too much cognitive load. You have too much information on the screen. The user comes back to a product detail page, or they're say in checkout, and they see options around above or below that they can click on, just something maybe in the wrong color. Again, going back to like that cart example where they're clicking on a link in an email, that when they're going back to the site, that we're rebuilding their cart for us, which is, again, that's something that we do on our platform, which is you click the link, you come back to the site, we have rebuilt your cart and repriced it, and so that you should be able to get back into that checkout flow without too much friction. So those are some of the places.
Nice. Thanks so much. Steve, where are you seeing friction introduced in the customer journey?
Yeah, just to build on what Sean was talking about, you know, there are a number of tools out there that can look for things like rage clicks. So that's where somebody is clicking on something that they think should be clickable, and it's not. There are very inexpensive ones, and there's some very robust ones that Sean was alluding to. Some of our clients use these very detailed things where you can follow somebody throughout their entire session, summarize those things, and send you an email of all the problems. But even something like Microsoft Clarity, which is just a free tool, gives you the very basics of things like rage clicks, dead links, bad pages, things like that will really help identify those kinds of friction. The second big piece of friction is sort of unexpected experiences in your UX. Folks, Amazon is almost ubiquitous now. Folks are very used to seeing things the way that they see things, and some of the larger big box stores are kind of setting that design standard for what happens in checkout, what information is available. And so if they come to your site and they don't see what they're used to, they get really nervous. You know, is this a really sketchy site? Should I just go back to Amazon or wherever? So spending some effort to make sure that they are experiencing what they expect to see. Things like getting your shipping and taxes upfront and visible is high in the checkout funnel as you can. You know, cart is the best place you can do it. Obviously, you don't have a whole lot of information about that customer at the cart. For example, where are you shipping it? I don't know where the taxes are until you tell me. But providing those kinds of tools where they can get them in advance by going, you know what, I'm in California, let me show you California's. And then also providing payment methods that they're used to paying. Not everybody in every area uses the same payment methods, so the days of just Visa and MasterCard are kind of long gone. A lot of folks like the Pay in 4 options that you get from Klarna and Afterpay, and Pay in 4 from PayPal. But also some of the other mobile type methods. So, I'm a huge fan of Apple Pay. I was a reluctant adopter, but boy, I love to just click that thing and show it my face, and I'm out. So make sure to try to spend some effort to get some of those other payment methods, alternative methods that people are used to using. Google Pay, Samsung Pay, Apple Pay, obviously, PayPal, Klarna, Afterpay, there's a million of them. So you don't have to do them all at once, but definitely keep track of the ones that people are using and make sure that you at least got a path to adding those. And then one of the other things that Sean mentioned is minimizing that cognitive load. So make sure that once they start the checkout funnel, that you're getting rid of all those distractions. The goal is to place the order. So oftentimes you'll want to look at a reduced header and footer that don't have lots of links that they can go back. While you need to make it easy to add the coupon, you don't want to show the fact and make it very prominent that there are coupons, because that often tends to drive customers away to go find a coupon. And then they don't find it and they don't come back. And so you end up with an abandoned cart. So provide a way to add it, but don't make it a big box in the middle of your form, because when they get to that step, they're not sure what they should fill in there. So those two are the big ones. I think a lot of folks are initially there was a big drive towards one-page checkout, and then other moves towards the several steps, or sort of a progressive checkout. I think the jury's out on that. It tends to vary back and forth between those two, but definitely making sure that the customer has what they need. What are the estimated shipping dates? How much is it going to cost? What payment methods can I use? Those things really reduce that friction during checkout.
Awesome work, y'all. So Steve, again, could you tell us about some common on-site technical SEO or GEO issues, and then also opportunities that you have seen?
Well, starting at the easy stuff, making sure that you got open graph tags hidden in the site. So it used to be just you needed some meta keywords and meta title and those types of things for your search engines to capture that information. They've kind of long moved away from some of those information, mostly because people would stuff them with keywords trying to beat the Google indexing engines. But things like Facebook and all the various socials, when you post these informations, getting the right information included in that post is important. So having those open graph tags embedded in there that say, here's the main image for this particular piece of content, whether it's a product or a listing page or a blog post that's on your website. There are ways to tag those so that they communicate all the way through to the social media where someone's posting that. Those are the lightweight, quick wins there. But the big thing is that, as AI, everybody's talking about it, it is slowly taking over search. And so you need to make sure that those AIs are seeing the same content that Googles and Bings and all the crawlers of the world used to see. You need to be spending some time making sure that the AI engines can do that, because folks are starting to just ask Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT the same types of questions that they would normally search. And the reason is because instead of giving them a list of results, these AIs are going out, analyzing those results and summarizing it. So it makes it way more efficient to find what you're looking for. So there are some new specifications, like you used to create a text file to identify all the pages that Google needed to know about you. There are ones now for AIs. So the LLM.text is a big one. It's not a standard yet, but it's definitely moving quickly. It's essentially the same thing. It gives an AI a layout and an architecture of your website. Where are all the pages? What are all the pieces of content it needs to know about? And then in a perfect world, you've gone through and for each product and listing page, you've created an AI aware file, a .md or a markdown file, that documents all of the information in a way that the AI can ingest better, instead of HTML or links and things like that. Breaking that out into what is this, what are the products, what are the SKUs, what are the features, what are all of those types of things, so that when a customer asks an AI about a product, it has all of that information readily available. I think that if you spend that extra time to focus on getting that information into the AIs, you'll end up winning this SEO race as folks start to really move away from Google and Bing and into Gemini and Claude.
Nice. Sean, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is that you should know the search engine capabilities. I think there's been a big shift over the last 10 years in web architecture for mostly dynamic versus mostly generated content, and different search engines have different capabilities for crawling those sites. So a good example is Google will parse dynamic content, pull if you have SKUs underneath your products that are loaded after the page loads, then those will only get crawled by Google. If you want, or your demographics are more towards, say, Bing does not do that. So knowing that when you're doing your SEO design, you need to have, if you expect or you have demographics that are mostly coming from another search engine, knowing the search engine's capabilities can really impact what you're feeding over to the search engine. So, or even in the case, the LLM text file, as Steve mentioned, those are not typically dynamically generated. So ensuring that all of that data is on the page and accessible by those crawlers, so that they can get that information and then obviously put them in the results. That's kind of the first big one. And I would say the second is making sure that you're looking at the way that your results are coming back on those search engines. I think in the classical sense, that's making sure that your tags, H1, H2 tags, have descriptions in them, and then when you're searching them, that when you go back to Google, that it's displaying your product name on the link and then a short description of the product underneath, because that can help users decide oh, this is actually the product that I was looking for. Moving on from that, now in the realm where Gemini is giving you a summary of your products or what sites have the products that you're looking for, that you're looking in those results as well to make sure that either you're represented or that you have the correct sort of metadata tags in those LLM text files, so that they can read it and then sort of spit that back to the user, so they can get it as part of that nice little Gemini summary at the top. So
Nice. You both are so knowledgeable. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise. Now that we've covered these common challenges and how to tackle them, the best way that you can start optimizing your site is with a site audit. Luckily, you can sign up for our free site assessment where we will identify issues on your site that are costing you sales. Now it's time to open the floor to questions for our speakers. If you haven't already, please go ahead and type your question in the chat and I'll go through them as they come. Let's see if we have anything so far. Oh, sad. No questions yet. Do you both want to share any final thoughts while we wait for questions to come in? No final thoughts.
Nothing in particular. There's always, this is just the high level of things that we've come across in trying to speed up your site and help those folks convert. Obviously, the optimization, the site assessment will help uncover even more things. And of course, you can just shoot us an email if you have a question afterwards. Not to steal your thunder in wrapping up everything, but yeah, I know sometimes there's a lot to take in, but we're happy to chat with anybody that wants to learn more.
Sounds good. Okay, we'll give it a couple more seconds. I know y'all have questions. So much information just came at you. I know you have questions. Okay. I guess no questions.
all right.
Well, I guess that's it. Of course, if you do have any additional questions or feedback for us, Please feel free to reach out to me or either of our speakers, like Steve said, and we'll always be happy to help. Thank you to Steve and Sean for sharing your insights, and thanks to everyone who attended. To connect with Virid, go follow us on social media and sign up for our email newsletter. Thanks.